Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Well, good evening, everyone. Namaste and welcome to our Wednesday evening study of Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga. We are well along in his talk, The Real and the Apparent Man. And he has been telling us what happens, given the quality and character of our lives, what happens to us after we depart the body. So before we go ahead, is there anything left over from last week? Some thought or question that you had, some comment that you'd like to make before we go ahead? Anything that remained unresolved or that you feel like commenting on? All right.
Wait, actually, Brother Shankara, can I ask a quick question about the reading from last week?
Yes?
Yes, I think they were talking about animals and coming back as animals. I was wondering where if plants are part of the, if our spirits sometimes are reborn as plants.
I think not, Roberto. I don't think I've ever heard that, but there certainly is not a pretense of completely comprehensive knowledge of everything that's said in all the scriptures here. So, but I've never heard that. We hear primarily of people being reborn as cats and dogs. Those animals that live with human beings and are able to observe human beings and ostensibly, or I think the underlying idea is that they will learn how to, they will relearn how to be human by living with human beings. This is what I've heard. Thanks for the question. It's an interesting thought. There is, however, in Patanjali, the idea that if you pursue the occult powers, that you may be trapped in the natural world, and your spirit may be in part in plants and other living things. So that's there in Patanjali, but it isn't so much something that happens after death. It's something that happens to a yogi who has taken this detour, this detour into the psychic powers. So there is that, but that's the only allusion to being part of the plant world. Thank you, Roberto. Anything else from anyone? Okay. We'll start here with what the Swami was saying. All men who do certain good and great acts, but the general tenor of whose lives has not been correct, will become gods, and after living for some time in God bodies, enjoying the powers of gods, they will have again to become men. When the power of the good acts is thus finished, and when the power of the good acts is thus finished, the old evil comes up to be worked out. Those who do extraordinarily evil acts have to put on ghost and devil bodies. And when the effect of those evil actions is exhausted, the little good action which remains associated with them makes them again become men. The way to Brahmaloka, which, if you remember, is what he says is what happens to he characterizes those individuals as very spiritual. The way to Brahmaloka, from which there is no more fall or return. Fall means return, fall into human life or return to human bodies. The way to Brahmaloka, from which there is no more fall or return, is called the way to God. The way to heaven is known as the way of the fathers. Man, therefore, according to the Vedanta philosophy, is the greatest being there is in the universe, and this world of work is the best, and this world of work, the best place in it, because only herein is the greatest and best chance for him to become perfect. Let me read that again because I read it so poorly. Man, therefore, according to the Vedanta philosophy, is the greatest being that is in the universe. And this world of work, karma, the best place in it, because only herein is the greatest and best chance for him to become perfect. Angels or gods, whatever you may call them, have all to become men if they want to become perfect. This is the great center, the wonderful poise and the wonderful opportunity. This is this human life. So he's about to change topics. Before we move on, is there anything about any of what was just read that gives rise to a comment or concern or question? All right. We come next to the other aspect of philosophy. There are Buddhists who deny the whole theory of the soul that I have just now been propounding. There are Buddhists who deny the whole theory of the soul that I have just now been propounding. What use is there, says the Buddhist, to assume something as the substratum, as the background of this body and mind? Why may we not why may we not allow thoughts to run on? Why admit a bird, a third substance? Why admit a third substance beyond this organism composed of mind and body? A third substance called the soul. What is the use? Is not this organism sufficient to explain itself? Be a lamp unto yourself, the Buddha said. Is not this organism sufficient to explain itself? Why take anew a third something? These arguments are very powerful. The reasoning is very strong. So far as outside research goes, we see that this organism is a sufficient explanation of itself. At least, many of us see it in that light. Why then need therefore a soul as a substratum, as a something which is neither mind nor body, but stands as a background for for both mind and body? Let there be only mind and body. Body is the name of a stream of matter continuously changing. Mind is the name of a stream of consciousness or thought continuously changing. What produces the apparent unity between these two? This unity does not really exist, let us say. What produces the apparent unity between mind and body? This unity does not really exist, let us say. Take, for existence, a lighted torch and whirl it rapidly before you. You see a circle of fire. The circle does not really exist, but because the torch is continually moving, it leaves the appearance of a circle. Now, this is a very powerful metaphor. It explains the seeming continuity of our thoughts and our actions, when in fact, once one attains the witness position, or the position of the soul, as the Swami is talking about it, one sees clearly that there is no continuity. It's as discontinuous and unrelated as what we recognize when we wake up from a dream. So I'm going to read that again. Take, for example, a lighted torch and whirl it rapidly before you. You see a circle of fire. The circle does not really exist, but because the torch is continually moving, it leaves the appearance of a circle. So there is no unity in this life. It is a mass of matter continually rushing down, and the whole of this matter you may call one unity, but no more. So is mind. Each thought is separate from every other thought. It is only the rushing current that leaves behind the illusion of unity. There is no need of a third substance. This universal phenomenon of body and mind is all that really is. Do not posit something behind it. You will find that this Buddhist thought has been taken up by certain sects and schools in modern times, and all of them claim that it is new, their own invention. This has been the central idea of most of the Buddhistic philosophies, that this world is itself all sufficient, that you need not ask for any background at all. All that is this sense universe. All that is this sense universe. What is the use of thinking of something as a support to this universe? Any comments or questions about what the Swami has just said? That is the Buddhistic position, that we seem to exist, we seem to be, because of the when the image of the lighted torch being whirled. It's because our eyes retain images. This is the way why motion pictures work. There is a continuity of retention of the image. So with mind, so with matter, the Swami is saying. Why posit anything behind? Before he answers the question, any uncertainty or any comment from your own wisdom or experience about those ideas? Okay. Everything is the aggregate of qualities. Why should there be a hypothetical substance in which they should inhere? Everything is the aggregate of qualities. Why should there be a hypothetical substance in which they should inhere? The idea of substance comes from the rapid interchange of qualities, not from something unchangeable, which exists behind them. We see body, we see how wonderful some of these arguments are, and they appeal easily to the ordinary experience of humanity. In fact, not one in a million can think of anything other than phenomena. Not one in a million. Of 1,000, one will seek me. Of 1,000 who seek me, one shall find me. In fact, not one in a million can think of anything other than phenomena. To the vast majority of men, nature appears to be only a changing, whirling something, mingling mass of change, of combining, I'm sorry. To the vast majority of men, nature appears to be only a changing, whirling, combining, mingling mass of change. Few of us ever have a glimpse of the calm sea behind, for it is always lashed into waves. This universe appears to us only as a tossing mass of waves. Thus, we find these two options. One is there is something behind the body and mind, which is an unchangeable and immovable substance, and the other is that there is no such thing as immovability or unchangeability in the universe. It is all change and nothing but change. The solution of this difference comes in the next step of thought, namely the non-dualistic. It says that the dualists are right in finding something behind all. It says the dualists are right in finding something behind all as a background which does not change. We cannot conceive change without there being something unchangeable. We can only conceive of anything that is changeable by knowing something which is less changeable. And this also must appear more changeable in comparison with something else which is less changeable, and so on, until we are bound to admit that there must be something which never changes at all. The whole of this manifestation must have been in a state of non-manifestation, calm and silent, being the balance of opposing forces, so to say, when no force operated, because force acts upon a disturbance. If the equilibrium because force acts when a disturbance of the equilibrium comes in. The universe is ever hurrying to return to that state of equilibrium again. If we are certain of that fact, if we are certain of any fact whatsoever, we are certain of this. Now, with the discovery of the Higgs boson, the theoretical physicists were astounded to find that the value of the Higgs boson was precisely the value that would create a universe of increasing complexity and specialization over time, the anti-entropic mode. We are examples of this complication and specialization. We're very complicated and specialized. A galaxy is more complicated than a star. A cluster of galaxies is more complicated and specialized than a galaxy, and so on. But the amazing thing that the theoretical physicists discovered in the value of the Higgs boson was that this complexification and specialization would go on for a period, and then it would begin to die away. The entropic mode would become predominant until there was total entropy or absolute zero. This appears to be the case. The universe is expanding faster and faster. It is expanding apparently much faster than it was expanding in the earliest universe. And this rate of expansion is increasing. There's still no understanding as to why, but there is a very good grasp of the fact that it is the case. Now, one can see this state of absolute zero as this equilibrium that the Swami is talking about. Perfect equilibrium, no disturbance, no waveform whatsoever. But as Stephen Hawking was working on at the time of his death, what remains is the information from which to create a next universe. Since Hawking was also of the opinion that, I think he had more than an opinion. It was a very well worked out concept that universe cycles from this absolute zero state. And again, this has, and it's beyond my ability to explain it because I don't understand it well enough, but it has to do with the quality of this Higgs boson and the fact that the Higgs boson apparently did not exist in the earliest universe. It was something that emerged, the Higgs boson field. So, any comments or questions about that little glimpse from science? Perhaps not the most. It's very difficult to keep up with this field that's so rapidly changing. And will change even more rapidly now that the James Webb Telescope is successfully deployed. But anything from anyone who wants to make a comment or ask a question about all of that? When the dualists claim that there is something that does not change, they are perfectly right. But their analysis, that it is underlying something which is neither the body nor the mind, a something separate from both, is wrong. So far as the Buddhists say that the whole universe is a mass of change, they are perfectly right. So long as I am separate from the universe, so long as I stand back and look at something before me, so long as there are two things, the looker on and the thing looked upon, it will appear always that the universe is one of change, continuously changing all the time. But the reality is that there is both change and changelessness in this universe. It is not that the soul and the mind and the body are three separate. It is not that the soul and the mind and the body are three separate existences, for this organism is made of these three. For the organism made of these three is really one. It is the same thing which appears as the body and the mind and as the thing beyond mind and body, but it is not the same. It is not at the same time all these. He who sees the body does not see the mind. He who sees the body does not see the mind even. I'm not making sense of that. Am I reading it correctly, someone who has the book? He who sees the body does not see the mind even.
You're reading it correctly. Yeah, it's not making sense to me either.
He who sees the mind does not see that which he calls the soul, and he who sees the soul, for him the body and mind have vanished. He who sees only motion never sees absolute calm, and who sees absolute calm, for him motion has vanished. Now this is something that can be experienced through meditation. What the Swami is saying. But is there any comment or question from anyone about this very elusive idea?
Brother Shankar,
Yes, please, Krishna Kali.
what I have understood of this is the truism that if you see the rope, you cannot see the snake. If you see the snake, you cannot see the rope. You can only see one thing at a time. People who only see the body do not see the mind. Those who see the mind cannot see the soul. Those who see motion cannot see calm, and those who see calm cannot see motion. You only see one thing at a time.
That seems to be the case until you see the unity behind, which is what Sri Ramakrishna calls Vijnana, the special knowledge that everything is that divine presence, whether it is still or in motion. And that's where the Swami is headed, of course. But up until that point, Krishna Kali, you're right. You see only one thing at a time. And even the experience of being in that utter calm, as the Swami says, is an experience of the looked upon by the looker on. There is an experience, there is an experiencer, and that which is experienced. This is why I say this is such an elusive idea. That's we can usefully pause and take a look at it.
I think that sentence we struggled with has a misplaced comma. If we move the first comma forward one word, it reads like this. He who sees the body does not see the mind. Even he who sees the mind does not see that which he calls the soul.
Ha ha. Thank you.
You're right.
So it's a typo. Thank you. Well reasoned, Ramadas. Okay, so there is this rope snake metaphor here. A rope is taken for a snake. He who sees the rope as the snake, for him the rope has vanished. And when the delusion ceases and he looks at the rope, the snake has vanished. There is then but one all-comprehending experience, and that one appears as manifold. There is then but one all-comprehending experience, and that one appears as manifold. This self or soul or substance, and now the S's are all capitalized. This self or soul or substance is all that exists in the universe. This is that Vijnana that I was speaking of, that's Sri Ramakrishna. This is that special knowledge. There is but one all-comprehending existence. By comprehending, he doesn't mean just understanding. It contains, or it is all these things. All are comprehended within it. There is then but one all-comprehending existence, and that one appears as manifold. This self or soul or substance is all that exists in the universe. That self or substance or soul is, in the language of non-dualism, the Brahman appearing to be manifold by the imposition of name and form. Now, let's make sure that we don't go ahead before we understand, before we're very clear of what this means. It is because the divine being said, I am one, I shall become many. This is that Mahat, or great cause. So manyness appears, but as a dream, not as a reality in the sense of the substance itself. And so then in the dream, we have this idea of I. The I does not exist yet. There is the telling one thing from another. There's this, there's that, there's the other. Then there is the discovery within the dream. Oh yes, I, the cosmic being, are seeing this. And it is different from that. Now we have name and form. Is that all something that is followed? Please go ahead.
So in the deeper states of awareness, you only see vibration, and in the dual sense, you see forms and names.
Well, forms and names are the vibration.
But we don't see it because we either see the rope or the snake. But in higher levels, they see just vibration. Is that what it is?
No, we see both. Seeing is not the right word. When we transcend to that Turiya state, there's no longer any experiencer there. So there is only that. There is only the substance, knowing itself. How it knows itself is not able to be put into words. It's beyond mind and speech. But it knows itself. This is the cosmic mind. You become one with Brahman. A knower of Brahman becomes one with Brahman. But then when one returns to the state of what was ordinary consciousness, now completely transformed ordinary consciousness, one sees the vibration as Brahman as well as the stillness. So you see both the rope and the snake. But you know the snake to be nothing more and the rope to be nothing more than consciousness itself. You don't see the rope and the snake in the same way that you saw them before. You see them both as only name and form. It's no longer a superimposition. Anything else from anyone? And did that get it, Krishna Kali? Is there anything more?
I'm still trying to wrap my mind around.
Well, this is the thing. The mind will never go around it. That's why the Swami is doing his best to put it into words, and I'm doing my best, so to speak, to give some interpretation or amplification of it. But it does not, this is a matter of experience, not a matter of concept. Jesus put it this way: the peace that passeth all understanding. There's no way to understand it. And so if there's no way to understand it, there's no way to speak of it.
Is it something like a dream that you find out that everything was you?
Savikalpa Samadhi, where there is still an experiencer, is not like a dream. It is the antithesis of a dream. There is only that. And that does not have a name. We can put the name God on it, or self, or substance, or whatever it is that we want to call it. But it really is nameless. And it is beyond form, but contains all forms, contains all names. And you realize in that state that you are one with that you are inseparably one with it. But there is just this tiny little separation, as if you had a pie in front of you and you had carefully cut just a wedge of the pie, but had not removed the wedge. There's just that tiny separation between the rest of the pie and the wedge. That is that sense of individuation, or small s selfness. And this is why when it's said, when you transcend all of that, and that tiny separation disappears, there is no experiencer. There is no, that sense of selfness that is the experiencer is no longer there. So the highest state of being is not an experience, because there's no experiencer there. So the dream business is something that happens to us as we progress in concentration and meditation. As we practice concentration and meditation, we come to see the dreamlike nature of the change that is occurring in front of us, which is what the Swami was speaking about earlier. That it's only because it is constantly in motion that it seems to be continuous, like the torch being whirled about. But in fact, that's only because of this retention of image in the eye, or in the actually not just in the eye, in the organ of vision, that that things seem continuous. Anyone else? Anything? And I certainly understand how difficult it is to even frame a question here. thank you, Krishna Kali, for being bold enough to give it a shot.
Brother
I think, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Swami.
I read somewhere, I'm not sure where, that um, every manifestation is the essence of Sachidanand. And in my mind, I'm thinking, if you think of the essence, and a little bit of the essence is like poured into different, say, bottles, some more concentrated, some less concentrated, and or some more dilute and diluted with whatever it may be, qualities or materialism. And then as you advance in the spiritual path and the diluents evaporate, then the essence gets concentrated and more concentrated and becomes to the same strength as the original essence. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Well, yes, it makes sense. It's a metaphor, but the moment that essence is perfect, it is absolute, and there is nothing left to know it but itself. So the human form that got you to that point is, to all intents and purposes, it appears to be dead. A person in nirvikalpa samadhi appears to be dead. There's no pupillary response. They're not breathing. Their heart is not beating. And most, apparently, when they do come to that state of nirvikalpa samadhi, they don't return to the body. It's only those who have this ego of love, this slender thread, as Sri Ramakrishna said, of ego of love or wisdom. He gave the example of Chaitanya, Sri Chaitanya, having the ego of love, and Adi Shankaracharya having the ego of wisdom. This slender thread. Otherwise, there would never be any teachers. There would be no one who could tell us that there is such a thing as unitive consciousness, or this non-dual state that the Swami is talking to us about to talk to us about. So once the essence is all of that which had diluted the essence is gone, then there's the self, the small s self that was part of that dilution is gone. So there's only essence, only existence itself, knowledge itself, bliss itself. No well, words just don't get it. That's why this metaphor that you just used. There's no thing left. Anyone else?
I understood this, what Swami is talking about, Brother Shankara. It's, I think this can only be understood through meditation, continuous. That's like you said earlier. And the next few lines, Swami is really explaining, and it just completely makes sense. The next few lines that are following these previous lines, he explains it in more detail, and that makes perfect sense to me. I think.
Okay, but I wanted to make sure that we had this distinction before we go on to the Swami's explanation, because if we don't understand the ground on which he's standing, then we'll not understand what he says next. So you're right, Haima. And of course, it's only through introspection, deep introspection, that these things are understood.
And then he explains more in detail. He leads us to have more understanding in the next few lines. It's more evident that we all can understand easily on the next several 20 lines, I think 20, 25. That's all I just wanted to mention.
Thanks for the preview. Anything else from anyone about what we have gone over and its significance? The Brahman appears to be manifold by the is that interposition?
Interposition.
Interposition of name and form. Look at the waves in the sea. Not one wave is really different from the sea, but what makes them apparently different, name and form, the form of the wave and the name which we give to it, wave. And if you want to know just how very complex this can become, just get to talking to surfers, people who surf on boards. It's just like the Inuits, the people who live above the Arctic Circle have so many different names for snow. The surfers have so many different names for various kinds of waves. It's the form of the wave and the name we give it to it, wave, but there are many different forms, but they're all the sea. This is what makes it different from the sea, the name. When name and form go, it is the same sea. Who can make any real difference between the wave and the sea? So this universe, this whole universe, is that one unit existence. Name and form have created all these various differences. As when the sun shines upon millions of what is that word?
Globules.
Okay. As when the sun shines on millions of globules of water, upon each particle is seen a most perfect representation of the sun. So the soul, the one self, the one existence of the universe being reflected on all these numerous globules of varying names and forms, appears to be various. Does that give us a sense of what we are? We are those globules with the sun reflected in us. But it is really only one. There is no I, nor you. It is all one. It is neither an I, it is neither all I or all you. This idea of duality.
It's either all I or all you, Brother Shankar, not neither.
It is either.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
either.
It is either all I or all you. This idea of duality, of what is that word?
Of two. Idea of duality of two.
But it says here, it says calf. two.
Oh, that's something misprinted, I think. The
This
idea of
idea
duality
duality of two
is
is
entirely.
entirely false, and the whole universe, as we ordinarily know it, is the result of this false knowledge. It is either all I or all you. This idea of duality of two is entirely false, and the whole universe, as we ordinarily know it, is the result of this false knowledge. When discrimination comes, and man finds that there is not two but one, he finds that he is himself. He finds that he is himself this universe. It is I who am this universe, and as it now exists, a continuous mass of change. It is I who can become all changes.
It's I who am beyond all changes.
Thank you. It is
Sure.
I tell you what, why don't you just read?
Oh, no, you want me to read that?
I want someone to read other than
Sure, sure. I'll be happy to do that. It is I who am this universe as it now exists, a continuous mass of change. It is I who am beyond all changes, beyond all qualities, the eternally perfect, the eternally blessed. There is therefore but one Atman, one self, eternally pure, eternally perfect, unchangeable, unchanged. It has never changed. And all these various changes in the universe are but appearances in that one self.
Okay, let's
We can stop there. It's almost time.
So anyone else have anything that they would like to add as a question, a concern, a comment? What the Swami is saying, this is what is so important for us to grasp. What the Swami is saying can never be understood by the finite mind. He is not speaking to us. He is speaking to us through the finite mind, but not as the finite mind. If you know the Swami's history, he had in June of 1895 been in the state of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. This is where he's speaking from. So all we can do is take in what the Swami is saying as Shravana, as that which is heard, and then hold it in our awareness as the highest truth, and slowly and slowly drop everything else that disallows us from realizing this truth. And that is a long road, a winding for most of us. Slowly and slowly, Swami Sridharananda says. So anything at all from anyone?
I have a comment to Brother Shankara.
Yes,
Swami is re-emphasizing what he has been talking all along. The soul is eternally pure and it's unchangeable, but it's only like the changes, all these changes in the universe are appearances. He had been talking about this all along in this book, in between, and leading us to the same message. The soul is unchangeable, it's pure. And that's what I'm understanding. My understanding is he had said this several times in the book.
Oh, yes.
Many times he led us with so many explanations and then led us to soul, Brahman. It's unchangeable, it's pure.
Yes,
Only.
I venture to say,
Yeah,
Ima, that not one of us sitting here this evening
everybody agrees, I
really
think.
understands the word pure.
Yeah,
We do not understand the word perfect. We do not understand the word changeless or infinite or eternal. We know those words, but you'll notice they do not refer to a form. There is only name, and we only have some sense of the meaning of that name when we become that. So the Swami is, as you said, over and over emphasized these things.
yes.
And so now we know these words. There is no form to infinite. There is no form to changeless. There is no form to eternal. There is no form to pure or perfect. So we know these words, but they are without form. And so we are invited to do what is necessary to realize these formless realities.
So you think the form is a Maya? That's what he's trying to tell us?
That it is
It's the Maya.
it is the waves. It is the waves.
And the wave subsides, then we see the sea. Right? Is that what it is?
Well, dear heart,
It seems that. Yeah.
well, that's one way of talking about it. As Swami Vivekananda says in Raja Yoga, in the book Raja Yoga, when there are no more disturbances in the mind stuff, no more vrittis in the mind stuff, no more vibrations within the body, then this universe, your universe, disappears. Not the universe that we all share, but the universe, your universe disappears. And that's why someone in that state appears to be dead. There is no vibration in the body. I mean, when she was very young, Sri Ramakrishna's wife, Sri Sharda Devi, lived in the same room with the master when she had just come. For the first 4 months that they were together, they lived in the same room. But because he would go into samadhi at night and appear to be dead, it was too frightening for her. He had to move her out of that room. Because he would appear to be lifeless. And she didn't know whether he was coming back or not. So there's no way for us to understand this.
Yeah.
We can know these words. We can know these concepts, but notice that they are all formless. It is said by Sri Ramakrishna and the other great teachers that the divine takes form only for our own, only for us. How great was thy sacrifice, freely choosing thy birth in this prison, our iron age, to unchain us and set us free. Breaker of this world's chain, we adore thee whom all men love, spotless, taking man's form. O purifier, thou art above the gunas three. In other words, in the state of Turiya. Thou art above the gunas three, knowledge divine, not flesh. Thou whom the cosmos wears, a diamond at its heart. So we're best served by being humble in the face of this information. It's good for us to know it. Blessed are they who speak of it. Few are they who make it the reality at the center of their life. Fewer still are those who realize it. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
I think that as long as we are in duality, important or a good thing to have is unshakable faith in the scriptures and the saints and sages that have realized the truth and affirm it and continue the path, with taking all the help of reading, listening, worshipping, whatever, and continue the path until our desire to know the truth and unite with the Absolute becomes undiluted. Then, with self effort and the grace, we will probably reach and then understand.
Yes, as Pravrajaka Gita Prana says, if you persist, Mother will take you beyond the door. Beyond the door of duality into unity. But she says she may prop the door open with her foot, or she may pull you through the keyhole. Now just imagine that. So, anything else from anyone? Thank you. Thank you, Swayam. Yes.
Brother Shankara Sumesh here. Hi.
Yes.
I think you said it perfectly, that it's just a thought to hold that, we are the universe, or we are, with the big self, because we are that. And the moment I try to, think about the thought, it becomes so confusing. So I think it's just hold the thought, and that's it. The moment because it's not reality. It's not like that I'm living that reality. Not reality means that it's not a reality for me, and it's not. But I think it's, if I just consider that, okay, this is the thought. That's it. That brings peace. Otherwise, I'm
Well, now, Sumesh, as Patanjali says, You now have the higher samskara, the mental impression left by the Swami's words. That can never disappear from you now.
Mm.
So slowly and slowly, through the process of manana, we replace our daily involvement with, entanglement with, the lower samskaras, and say, the way that the saints and the sages and the scriptures think, therefore speak and act is like this. And so we slowly and slowly replace the way we think, speak, and act with that, an approximation of the way that the saints think, speak, and act. It must be, of course, our own. We can't imitate others. But if we do that, if we hold this in thought, particularly if we sit quietly and simply contemplate it, what are the implications? What is it that the saints say? How do they think? How do they speak? How do they act? This is what Arjuna asks in the Gita. Well, one of these realized souls, Krishna, how do they speak? How do they think? How do they act? And Krishna tells him, and it adds up to something called Sthita Prajna, someone who is undisturbed, centered. In the state of yoga. So it is a long process for most of us. Some have the strength of mind to simply break apart the pretensions of the mind and the entanglements of the body. Very, very few. Very few. In the meantime, as Swayam pointed out, we're best served by having that working faith. You don't have to have blind faith. That's foolishness. That working faith, that what these people like Vivekananda say to me is a higher truth than the truth I'm living. How to get from here to there, which is essentially what we talk about in all these classes and all these talks each week. And you can find innumerable, and I mean literally these days, innumerable iterations of this on various YouTube channels, books, podcasts. So many voices saying this, this, this. We can accept the invitation, but as Sri Ramakrishna says, don't dig shallow wells here and there. Find one way of being with this great system of truth and dig deep and you'll find the pure water. Anything else from anyone? Okay, dears. This is, when we're with Swami Vivekananda like this is the roughest sledding that there is in studying this stuff. The Swami is giving us the most difficult to grasp. This is not bhakti. Not minimizing bhakti. Bhakti is absolutely wonderful. But this is not bhakti. This is Advaita. and the mind rebels against it. The body does not want to live it. Om Hari Om. Om Asato Ma Satkamaya. Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Abir Moiti. O dearly beloved, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from this realm of endless noise and relentless delusion to thine abode of silence, serenity, clarity, and peace. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through, light us through and through with thy everlasting, shining presence. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga Durga Durga. May we be safe, may we be healthy, may we be cheerful, may we have peace of mind, may we go forward in the loving and protective embrace of that being who has taken form as the divine being, as our mother and father. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Any final thought from anyone?
Pranams, Brother Shankara.
Well, namaste. Loving best wishes to each and every one of you. What a joy to be with you.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
until Saturday at noon, see you then.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.